What's up, guys? I am here with Tyler Hazelwood from the Lords of Gastown. This was actually the shirts that I wore for, I bet you, 3, 4 years straight. When I was working out Harley, these were the shirts that were in, and by far my most favorite T-shirts that I've ever worn in my entire life came from Lords. So, Ty, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the long running support. It
Yeah,
seems like another lifetime ago when you used to work at Harley.
yeah, it does, man. Like I'm actually cracking 6 years in my business come February 21st. And it's crazy to think, man, like, back 2015, everything was so different working at Harley and of course going through those changes. And you guys have built such an amazing brand. And like it doesn't matter where you go, if there's someone that's into Harley Davidsons and they're got a little bit of edge to them. Generally, they got a Laura's hat on or a jacket or boots or something like that. And you guys have a really West Coast feel, which, of course, anyone on the West Coast, there's a lot of pride with the West Coast and outdoors and stuff like that. So yeah, man, really appreciate you coming on. So if you could just maybe give us a little bit of background on basically where you're from and how you grew up, and we'll take it from there.
So I grew up in Langley, BC here, and part time in Salmon Arm, in the interior. Went to school in Langley out here. And what was the rest of the question?
Well, yeah, just basically like before you got into Lords, like before the company was up and running and that sort of thing. What were you doing for a living? Like from high school till you got the clothing line going. Like what was work life for you?
First job in high school was bagging groceries at Safeway. And I was pretty bummed out that I didn't get the job at McDonald's where the rest of my friends worked. I actually got turned down for McDonald's, and then I ended up working at Safeway, and I worked at Earl's as a dish pig. Um, and then from there, graduated high school, and the only education outside of high school has actually been bartending. Um, and I trained to bartend because I wanted to get out of Langley as soon as possible, and I was getting a lot of pressure into getting into trades. My family background is trades, especially plumbing and heating, and I just wasn't my bag, and I didn't want to follow in those. So I found out that bartending was a very cheap trade that you could do anywhere in the world, and it sounded like a better deal for 3 weeks for $500 compared to like whatever 3 years for plumbing school and 100 grand later or whatever it is. And then I got that, became got kind of adopted as a protege for the owner of that school. And the reason why I chose that school is because I really wanted to go to Amsterdam. And he had connections with the Bulldog, which was like now is the biggest seller of hashish and Heineken in all of Holland, but was also the original coffee shop in Amsterdam that started selling cannabis. So I was like kind of in love with that story when I met this guy, and I was like, oh shit, like I want to go to this guy's school. So I learned bartending, and I went actually to Australia first, and toured around Australia and New Zealand and Fiji for like a year and a half almost. And yeah, I was planned to just travel, and I traveled basically from I did that in Australia. I came back and I got a job bartending on the American Orient Express, which was like a 5-star hotel on wheels, that goes from Vancouver to Montreal and back. So it was like working like fine dining, bartending. It was kind of a trip. It was like going back in time on this train that's like an old school 5-star hotel. And so I worked on the train and was able to save a bunch of money because you can't spend any money when you're working on a train. And then from there, I moved to Europe for about 2.5 years, and I bartended and did got into. That's really, I think, when I really got into sales, um, was when I moved to Europe, and probably would have stayed living there if I didn't have health issues. That's when I first started coming down with symptoms, um, and health issues, and I couldn't deal with it over there. They kept on saying I had food poisoning, and I basically came to a point. I was like, oh, I got to go back to Canada because I got to figure out what's going on. And then was shortly after that diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and kind of started with that awareness and that part of my life. At the same time, I came back and I started teaching at that bartending school, and started a business. My first business was called, well, originally it was called T&T Bartending, and it was bartenders for hire, because basically back then um, it was like phone book days, right when the internet was starting. So if you're looking for a bartender for a private party or special event, you'd open up the phone book, and the only thing in the phone book was bartending schools. So the bartending school that I worked at, instructing at, he would get so many of these calls for bartenders, and he hated it because whenever the phone rang to him, that was money from a student. And then when they would call and ask him for bartenders, he'd be like all frustrated and be like, blah blah. Anyway, so I started taking these gigs that were coming in, and I got so busy that I started hiring the students that I was training and putting them out as bartenders and servers. And I partnered with my mom. I think that's when we first started working together. And yeah, um, fast forward maybe 2 3 years later, the owner of the bartending school drank himself to death.
Oh shit.
And yeah, and so it's pretty gnarly. Like, this is a mentor of mine, drank himself to death owning a bartending school. um, and So I went to the landlord and was like, let me have a run at this. Like, I've been running the school basically, and I was about to lose my business, side business, because I wasn't going to have access to students to put through the agency, which had become pretty busy for that back then. Um, but I went through a weird transition where I couldn't like drink alcohol for like uh, I can't remember how many years now, but I remember being in like a bizarre paradox where I owned a bartending school, but I couldn't drink because it was like destroying my system. And that's when I decided to pursue DJing, and I had in the bartending world, I'd developed into like a club promoter, and I was throwing parties and renting out art galleries and doing curated events, and staffing them with them all. But I was, selling tickets and doing the promotional side of it. And then I started doing that with clubs. And I became friends with a lot of the DJs because I was booking them. And a guy that I was really good friends with at the time was Arizona's #1 DJ, but had been kicked out of the States for a DUI, and was living in Vancouver at the time. So I asked him to teach me to DJ. And then, so my bartending school is called the School of Mix. And then basically I was like, oh, well, if I want to learn how to DJ, I'm sure there's other kids out there that want to learn how to DJ. And it was like, to me, the better job in the club world, even than bartending, because bartending was a great job, but then the better job than that was being the DJ. So yeah, then that's how School of Remix started. So I had a bartending school and a DJ school and an event staffing company. And then my first brand and first dabbling into clothing was around then. I had a brand at a very successful music blog in the DJ world, in the electronic music world, called Shit's Poppin' Off. And it developed into an electronic music clothing. It was when I first started messing with silk screening and doing that stuff with garments. And that's kind of how Lord spawned out of that, because where music was my main passion, motorcycling kind of replaced that when I was able to afford a Harley, basically.
I love it, man. That's actually, I've never heard the story before. I've known you for, geez, what, 6 years, 7 years here. And like, I didn't have a clue. And it's kind of funny because like I traveled to Australia. I was a bartender in Australia as well, which was that's craziness down there, right?
Yeah.
Didn't ever go out to Europe or anything, but it was like, same thing, getting into trades. Parents, my dad was in trades. Everyone said, hey man, go get a trade, go be a fireman and do a trade on the side. And I'm like, I don't really see myself doing a structured job for 40 years. Like, I don't know. It's like, if someone goes, hey, go jump off that cliff. That same feeling is like, yo, go work for 40 years. It's like, yo, I don't think that's for me. But that's pretty awesome, man, seeing how everything kind of progressed through. So it kind of seems like you had the entrepreneurial mindset pretty early on. I mean, taking
Well,
over the dudes, mixing school, I'm sure was probably,
yeah,
um,
I think one thing that I'm I'm trying to point out more now that I kind of always leave out in that story was that I was in special education since grade 3, like undiagnosed dyslexia and learning disabilities, and like put with like the deaf kids and stuff. So I didn't do well in school and I didn't like school. So that was another reason why I like the idea of going to learn a trade and going back to school for like another 2 to 5 years or whatever it was. It's like, fuck that. Like, I'm like, bartending school, 3 weeks, done. I'm in. And then, and I've met so many people when I first went traveling in Australia. They're like, fuck, I wish I did what you did. I just went to school for 5 years and I don't ever want to do the job that I just learned how to do for 5 years again. And I feel like I just wasted 5 years of my life because because I was like 19 and I was traveling with all people that were like 20, 24, 25 to 27 area. Like they had just done their college and university and everything. And then they went traveling and they just reaffirmed for me that like, um, I was on a good path for me.
absolutely.
And, also because, I was in some ways really hindered by the school industry telling me that like I had all these issues and that I, basically when you do that thing like what are you suitable for, it was like taxi driver or like line worker, line chef or whatever, like retard, like that's
Yeah.
what they used to call, like it wasn't called, none of the kids called it special ed, everyone called it retard class.
Yeah. No, hey man, I went to school. I know what it was like.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. So it was like, oh, you're back in the portable with retards. But so that's something that sparked that, like, I don't, the system doesn't work for me. Like
Yeah.
I'm like can't fall in. Like I was a good employee, but I was not a great employee for the any means for the jobs that I did have. And as soon as I got a taste of like, it was a fight or flight type thing because I was like, oh, I'm not. The school system says that I have zero potential, and I'm getting luck over here by backing myself and like following my intuition and like listening to my passion. And yeah, and that's where it started. And my grandfather was an entrepreneur, and so was also my adopted father. So I had two entrepreneurial father figures in my life. And it cracks me up because like my grandfather, like I'll go to him because he's kind of like my business mentor. And the problems that I have now, like it's just like he just kind of like dude, he's like, dude, I was 23 years old, I have 4 kids, all girls, and I had 50 guys working for me at 23 years old.
That's
I'm
nuts.
just like, dude, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It
man.
is, it is nuts. And I'm like, you know, mid 30s, 1 kid, like 15 employees, and I'm just like, like what the fuck, and
Yeah.
he's just like,
I
you
feel
gotta.
you there. You know what's funny, man, is like you're saying in school, when I was graduating, or like literally, I every single day I got up in grade 12, I prayed to God that I passed English or math, whatever math I needed to do, math and English and like the whatever. I was shop class, PE, because I was the same way, man. Like I would learn things really quickly, but I would skip all the homework and I would just do really well on the test and I would get like a C average. And it's like, a lot of sales guys get into sales because they're like, I don't need to know all this stuff. I just need to work with people. Like you put me in front of someone, let me chat with them, let me build a little rapport. Everything's good. If I, know my product and service, I'm going to be able to sell it and I'll make money and I can basically control my income from there. And it's like, there's so many kids that the school system fails, especially university now, man. Like if you ever listen to Jordan Peterson, he's all about, you know, how the universities are failing today's youth. And it's like the entrepreneur sort of spirit, especially in 2020, man. There's a lot of people out there right now where, you know, they can't go to work, you know, or they're on restricted hours or whatever the case is. And it's like, how many people are still working like your grandpa did when it's 2020, man? Like we all carry this thing around in our pocket. It's like learn how to use it, get efficient with the technology, and you can do really, really great things. And of course, I mean, with your guys' brand so far, it's everywhere. And I mean, you guys even went out, you know, you got the East Coasting crew out there. What do they call it? East Coast. Yeah, East Coasting.
They're the best guys in the game on one wheel, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, they're nuts. Absolutely nuts. Yeah, if you haven't go to Instagram, the East Coasting crew, and is it East Coasting crew?
Yeah, East Coast and crew, but I think that if you just do at East Coast and it's gonna come up. It's the maniacs on
Yeah,
Harleys.
just see a Harley like this.
Yeah,
in the
that's
right place, right?
yeah. No, they kill it. Those guys are rad, and so super humble, super down to earth, and just like love what they doing, and very like blue collar honest dudes.
Right on.
Showed us no Mexicans nothing but support. But it's
That's
interesting that you make an interesting point that I wanted to touch on. That's what I learned about myself, is that I just didn't learn the way the textbooks and the teachers were told that that's how people learn. And I realized that like I learned by being, and you said it like in the sales aspect, I learned by being in someone's presence that had the skill set that I wanted, and I could absorb it if I was from that person and watching them do it. And I don't totally know the formula, but I truthfully believe that like aura wise, like I pick up on the energy. I just absorb knowledge on multiple levels from a person where I couldn't bring it off the page. I couldn't bring it out of a document on a computer. I just needed to be with that. So interestingly enough, you also said too, like you dreaded passing English and stuff. And that was me as well, English. And I was in whatever the lower grade math was, but I always find there's a kick with me with high school, because I graduated on time, but I graduated late because my marketing teacher would get only gave me 48%, and you needed 50%. You needed 50% to graduate, right? And that was my goal. Like I was just set to hit my C minus 50%. I'm getting by.
100%.
Like this is and like so he I had hit every other pass except for his class, and it's by 2%. This motherfucker was not going to let me graduate on time. And the irony of it all is that my project that for marketing was a lifestyle brand, and like basically what I do now for a living. But it was snowboarding and not motorcycling. But it was like this like a lifestyle brand, logo based t-shirts. It was basically like started with a t-shirt company. We made snowboards, and this motherfucker failed me. And I had to go back to school for 2 weeks after to finish the project and to get 50%. So I graduated on time. I set a record for my school for the most truancies of anyone to graduate on time, because I was fucking never there.
Yo,
I like was only there enough to like, and that's what I think is maintain my C minus, and like I was never there.
Yo, C minus is a pass, bro.
Oh yeah,
C minus is a pass. As long as I'm on that
A plus for me.
C minus or A plus, we're both getting out of here, right? That was my dude. That's so funny that you bring that up. And you know what? If I were you, I'd send him one of your hats that says more trees, less assholes, and then send him a little baby tree and say, thanks for the inspiration, bud.
Well, so I got this girlfriend of mine that she's always pointing out the positive of how you could look at it. And it's like, oh, maybe because he pushed you and you had to work that much harder in the end, he did you a favor. So then maybe it is that, because I definitely know that part of my fuel to be successful and to grind it out is proving motherfuckers wrong.
Yeah.
that said that I couldn't do it, or that it couldn't be done. Whether it be on the health side of things or in the finance world, like I definitely have had that strength with Crohn's, because I know this question is going to come, so I'm just going to put it out. I know you want to ask me what the biggest struggle with business has been, and for me, it's definitely been balancing my health with being like having a super fiery entrepreneurial spirit that doesn't really know when to shut it down unless my body shuts it down for me.
Yeah.
So then in now have to schedule downtime.
Yeah.
And it definitely, like, a lot of the mentors that I listen to now, like, it's not a race, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And with Lords, we've had crazy quick success, but it's a longevity game, and the older that I get, the more having that downtime and feeding that, or giving fuel for the fire before you burn out.
I feel you there, man. And I'm kind of in the same boat where, you can rush and rush and rush, but as you mature a little bit in your business, you start to realize that, like, tomorrow the business is going to be there, and to take your time a little bit to make sure you do things right and make sure you do them the proper way. And you have what I've been learning over this last little bit is you bring in the right people, you bring in the right attitudes, not the aptitude, not how smart you are, not how good of a sales guy you are, not how what you did in the past. Those are important, but they're not nearly as important as the attitude that you bring to the company, and making sure that you align with the core values and stuff like that. So how long has Lords, like, when did Lords like start? Like, how long has it been?
Well, as a concept or an idea, like, I want to say 2011, like that's when the name kind of started. So Lords didn't start from scratch really, because I had a community, I had a brand, multiple brands, and I had a facility that ended up being what was known as the Lords Compound, but it was School of Remix and School of Mix, that owned those spaces there, and I was doing Shits Popping Off as a brand for parties and stuff. So I kind of changed that community into the motorcycle community in some ways, but there's some people that are attached to my brand still just because of the parties that don't even that'll never ride a motorcycle, and that's because I think from where that community started for me with the brand. So Lords of Gastown, like, wasn't a name that we came up with. It was a nickname that was given because I was part owners in the Chronic Cantina in Gastown, and then I was a gigging DJ around town, and we had a crazy sound system in the cantina. It was I'm spacing it right now, but it's the brand that they use at Shambhala, and I can't believe it. People are gonna laugh at me that I used to do this for a living, but I can't remember what it was. But anyways, we put that huge sound system in there, and would like rattle the glass off of the bars across the street, and then we would go and just drink at all the bars, and that was kind of a nickname that bartenders gave us. Was like, oh, the Lords of Gastown are here, and we come in all drunk and douchey, um, and that's kind of where it started. And like I said, because I was making T-shirts and branded stuff for Shits Popping Off, I came up with a design that was a ripoff of the Lords of Dogtown. Because are you familiar with that brand?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the
Yeah, they're,
original
they're
brand.
surfing, right? Surfing and skateboard.
Well, skate and surf, from Venice Beach, California. They're like the original OGs down there, and one of their logos was Dogtown on the cross, like like the East Van crosses, and
Right.
they had the Dogtown cross, and I figured out that you could put Gastown on the cross if you used the anarchy symbol for the O and the A, is the design that I came up with. So we made that so it said Lords of Gastown. It was basically a drinking team shirt, and people just want to buy it. So we started with 20 and sold 20, and then it was 40 and sold the 40, and It's super organic, and there's no business plan. And I mean, obviously I had a vision for a brand. Like, what, fast forward now 10 years, I realized what my skill set was. I didn't, it was branding and promotion and design. But yeah, so I don't know if it's something that I've always fantasized with, of maybe doing like an A and B testing, of like sitting down and like mapping out a business plan and like trying to recreate Lords in like a, I don't know, like my gut tells me you couldn't do it. Like, because so many people tried to do it, so many people saw what we were doing, and they had way more funding and had access to this. And I guess it's the whole, what people would say is it was missing authenticity of what people were drawn to about Lords. Lords had some sort of authenticity around whatever the vibe is that we were selling, right? And a lot of these other brands, they might have had better business plans or more funding and whatever, but it was lacking the depth of whatever they are. And again, I don't totally know what it is, but when I've talked to people in that, it's like people are drawn to authenticity late now.
Yeah, it's probably a bit of the culture that you guys had with the going out and the having fun and being the life of the party. Because again, everybody wants to gravitate to the people with the high energy and the charisma and stuff like that. And if you're slanging drinks and pounding tunes and you're at the best parties with the hottest girls and all the cool people want to go hang out, then you're going to start to create that sort of like the cool kids, so to speak, right? And it's like, I guess that's, I mean, I know I literally would work at Harley, and you would see guys come in that didn't have a motorcycle and they would buy all this Lord stuff. They come in head to toe with Lords, and you could tell because if all their clothes were clean and they came in driving, like, hey, what do you ride? It's like, oh, well, I'm getting a bike next year. And it's like, it's so cool because they wanted to be around the bike culture. And it's like Harley Davidson's great, but Harley Davidson's been around, for 100 and something years, 115 years. And they had a very established sort of brand. But what do you think of when you think of a biker? You think of a guy, leather vest, big guy, drinking beer. It's yeah, it's not a hip, cool West Coast young thing. And then you guys come in and you put like this spin and vibe on it, and like the lowered trucks with all the cool shit, and like you guys had the toys as well, right? So and so it's been
Well,
what?
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't cut you
No,
off.
continue.
No, I just mean to speak to your point of like, that's one thing that I always say is like, we just create, like, the brand was created a necessity, because we would have been rock if Harley was making all the stuff that we wanted. We would have never made our own shit. We would have just bought what Harley was. And I always even say, like, I feel like I should have been working for Harley. Like, I should have been making, but I'm not saying that I'm regretful that the way it went, but it's just always interesting. Like, it comes from a love of that brand, of where this brand came from. And it's like, well, with the whole Dyna thing, like, everybody's into Dynas, but you buy a Dyna that looks nothing like what we want, strip everything off of it and put all this new shit back. And then it's just like, either there's some amazing genius behind Harley in doing that and creating the whole two markets, like the aftermarket and stuff like that, or they're just like so big of a conglomerate now that they just are out of touch.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely say they definitely thought it out because they were get some echo. Yeah, you can definitely bring it back to probably Willie G, because I mean, people will come in, they spend 20 grand on a bike and they spend 20 grand on parts. It's like the Mr. Potato Head of motorcycles. And again, you could ride the same bike as me and it can be a little bit different. And it's like, hey dude, what's up? Doesn't matter who you are. You see someone that's riding a Harley, you're like, yo, this guy's somewhat like me. So so going through your processing, and obviously going through COVID, what's the biggest struggle for you guys going through obviously the pandemic right now?
Biggest struggles are staffing, supply chain, and I think that just like the general energy is difficult. Like you said, like you're like, I'm stoked that I get to work from home and I don't have to deal with this and that. It's like making handmade goods and having a team with a warehouse and like having to have that. Um, just keeping up with making people feel safe and like all the new rulings and like just the doom and gloom fear mongering is part of it. But I'll touch back on, well, with when CERB came on the scene, they basically incentivized people not to go to work.
Yeah.
So getting people to come off the CERB and come back to work was difficult. And um,
And for anyone that was
then
wondering what CERB is, it's the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit Program. In case there's any Americans going, what the hell's a CERB? But yeah, it's about, what was it, two grand, right? 2 grand a month for 6 months or something like that.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. So that was finding people to come back to work. I mean, the upside was like the talent pool just got flooded with really good people. So we were able to take advantage of that in the long run of being able to like really tool up with some good staff. And as you know, the team's everything. So getting people there but yeah, getting people that wanted to work there for a minute was hard. And yeah, supply chain, like most of my American partnerships went to shit, like because they couldn't supply anymore. And that really jammed a lot of things up. Like we did a couple collabs, like a skateboard collab, and they couldn't get decks now. Like I guess I don't know for sure, but I was told the whole skate industry is having issues getting decks right now. And our one of our most popular items was a dye sub jerseys, and we had a partnership with LA Sublimation, and they got rocked, and just really in the end screwed us because they couldn't be transparent about how screwed they were, and they kept on trying to promise things, and which then becomes a nightmare because I'm relaying that to my customers and I keep on going back on my word, and I'm like, no, but it's not even me, like it's just fucking, they don't give a fuck, they're like, where's my shit? And so yeah, the American partnerships really took a hit, and supply chains really took a hit, but very fortunate that we had let our retail space go because we were in the transition period. So I was actually shopping for really big leases in downtown in February. And luckily I was having health issues at the time, and my gut just was like, I don't want to take this on right now. And then boom, March comes, and it was like, fuck, I'm so glad we just didn't take a 8 to $12,000 a month lease because we were looking at like big retail spaces and partnering with the coffee shop, and like we are going to do a big community space, and it just would have been a nightmare. Like we've just been getting hosed right now. So that's been something that we've been fortunate that we didn't have a lot of brick and mortar, even though I do have a decent workshop that is overhead, but I didn't have a multiple overheads with brick and mortar, and 90% of our sales are done online. Been relatively unaffected for sales wise, but fulfilling has been a lot more difficult because, like I said, from supply chain issues to staffing issues, you get someone with a COVID scare, like their roommate or their loved one gets positive, and all of a sudden my warehouse is shut down for like minimum 3 to 5 days till everybody gets their test back, but maybe 2 to 3 weeks if there's an outbreak.
Right.
Like that doesn't really translate to the end user. Like people are so Amazon chain trained right now that like, what the fuck, I just ordered it an hour ago, why is it not here?
Yeah.
Like, I want to support small business and be like that, pat myself on the back because I'm supporting small business, but treat them like fucking big conglomerate Amazon. It's like, yo, no, like we only have 2 people in our shipping department, and I'm sorry it's taken 2 weeks, but that's what it says our expected wait times are. And like I shouldn't say that, not blanking all of them, because we have some amazing, but the 10 to 20% of Karens online that just are entitled to be the boss in every situation. It's just like, yo, what do you want me to do? We're a small company and someone got COVID, so we had to shut down for 2 weeks. Like that set everything back by 2 weeks. Like it's not that I don't respect the support for my company or anything. I'm just following the rules.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle, but I don't want to in any way come across as ungrateful, because I got friends in hospitality, I got friends in cannabis and different industries, and they're just getting fucking murdered.
Yeah. Well, Laura, she's a yoga instructor, and one
Yeah,
of the
there you go.
girls from like, the night before, the day before, had someone in her house get COVID, not even her. And they had to shut down all the yoga studios. And it's
Oh yeah,
like, it's just fucking crazy, man. Like, it,
yeah,
I don't want to get on a whole COVID thing right now, but
yeah.
it's nice that
No,
you do have the online space, right?
oh, big time. It's so nice. Like a lot of the things fell in place for us for sure. Um, but it's interesting times because you know, I'm stuck on some decisions as far as like if brick and mortar is going to go away completely, and or how to a bigger thing is like I don't think brick and mortar there's I mean I do think it's dying for sure, but I just think it's going to need the spaces are all going to be there, so they're going to have to figure out how to reinvent it, and like how to reinvent um brick and mortar really, and that experience, and what our jobs as entrepreneurs is to like figure out how we add the value by having an brick and mortar space again, because I don't think the spaces are going to go away, and I also think that there's with anything like there's opportunity in these times, with all chaos there's always opportunity, and yeah, toying with the idea of, well, my a brother of mine bought a building up in Salmon Arm, so we are going to be opening up a shop up there because he bought the building. So it's like, yeah, we're going to make use of that. But yeah, I'm fighting the urge to go and grab these leases right now because you can get some amazing deals right now.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be holding the bag if you can't make it work, right? Like if you can't
Well, we also
figure
live
out.
in Vancouver, where it's like the highest cost per square foot for anything that you want to buy out here. So, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
well, this is I just want while you say that is like that's something that I have to remind people all the time. Is like, well, why is your vest $300? Like I can fucking get a fucking this at wherever for $99. It's like you're buying it from me, our brand that clearly says it's handmade in Vancouver, Canada, and it's the most expensive. It's on par with New York for everything, cost of living, everything. So it's like, yeah, that's why it costs that much, because it wasn't made in a factory in China.
if you don't
Like
want a Rolls Royce, go buy yourself a Honda Civic. Hey, they're both cars.
people argue with me all the time. Same with like our flannels. Like, why is your flannel $300 and I can get a Dixon flannel for $49? And it's like you're comparing apples and oranges. Like Dixon is clearly. I mean, I don't know if he's still trying to say that it was made in USA, but everybody knows it's made in China. And he's making that flannel for $7. It cost me $200 cost to make my flannel. That's why I sell it for $300,
Yeah.
because like do the math, I'm paying $20 to $25 an hour for a craftsman, like, and if it takes 9 hours or 6 hours to make a garment plus the fabric, like it's but people don't really like I said, there's a an ignorance that people keep with that type of stuff around. I want to support local, I want to buy independent, but I want it for China's prices. And
Yeah.
like I'm not ragging on China either, because I do, do produce some stuff over there as well, and we need it, but that you kind of have to constantly be educating your buyers with questions like that. It's like, well, it's not the same.
Yeah, and there's it's the same thing with Lululemon. Why are Lululemon $120 when I can get these cheap ones for $19? It's like you're buying the brand, you're buying the quality of the fabric, and it's it's a good piece of garment, And at the end of the day, it's like if you don't want to buy this, then go buy the other thing. But how is Rolls Royce and Lamborghini and Ferrari? They've been around for years, man. Like people, there's markets out there for people that want the high quality stuff. And you guys are a high quality brand, right? I mean, What else do you
For
say?
sure, and you know there's a talking point like, well, why do you buy a $4 Starbucks when you could buy a 50-cent coffee? Like
Or
it's
make
really
your
the
own.
same thing, but you're paying for the brand, right? And like that's what you know what I've strived to be a practitioner of in the last 6 years is understanding, because I didn't understand branding. I didn't go to school for branding. I didn't, you know, it's something intuitively that I understood intuitively, but I didn't have the structure of why it works or what it's about. And I really tried to educate myself, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, of what brands' jobs are and how they work and why people, and you know, like you're there a lot of times you're buying an emotion, you're buying a feeling and a connection, not just a product. Like I'm buying a Starbucks coffee, not just a coffee.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that. I don't know why I keep using Starbucks as a reference, but because I don't have that connection to Starbucks. But um, that's the reality of it, is like it's just coffee,
Yeah.
and we all know how much Starbucks doesn't cost 4,000 times more to make.
Right. Yeah. Then a Tim Hortons that's across the street. That one's a buck, and this one's 350.
Exactly, but
Why do you
you're
go there?
buying.
You go there to be the prestigious. Look at my white Starbucks cup. They write my name on it, and they got a cool gluten-free fucking cookie here and all that sort of stuff. You go over to Tim Hortons, and you got sugar donuts and whatever. But again, it's like you're buying the Starbucks because how many people post their Starbucks cup on Instagram? You don't see a fucking person ever posting their generic coffee white cup. Hey, I picked this up from the 7-Eleven. Check out my 7-Eleven cup. Never. It's always the
It's a
Starbucks,
status
right?
thing. It's 100% a status thing. Like I'm a Starbucks drinker and this and that, and that's the brilliance, and that's the brilliance of branding. And also, you know, I have an interesting paradox there as well, because like I grew up loving Bill Hicks, and like Bill Hicks is like always like, if you're in marketing and advertising, kill yourself. And um and because it is snake oil and a lot of time, you know, brainwashing and this and that, which also there's a magic to it, and that, you know, I think that it's why also now people are a lot more drawn to ethical brands and sustainable brands, and people making an effort not to just be all luxury and no give back. And so yeah, but yeah, that's exactly it. It's you're paying for the brand.
Yeah, I feel you there, man. So in your, I mean, it's so hard to forecast the future, especially now. But moving into 2021, what's your goal over the next 12 months? Where do you want to see Lords by the end of 2021?
Still in business. um, Yeah, well, Japan is a market that's on the forefront right now, and I've always had a quiet love affair with Japan, and being accepted in Japan, and breaking some ground there, and Australia.
Yeah.
So those are two markets that we're entering, and uh, I don't. Well, yeah, I just want to continue. We're on a good trajectory. I'd like to just be able to keep maintaining that in such troubled waters. Um, but I think that we're at a place with scaling where it's making hard decisions around what's important, um, for the brand. Like you know, when we started, it was a passion project, and there was no financial expectations, and there was no whatever, and it was just like, we're gonna do this because it's fun. And you know, now that there's 20 employees that depend on it, and I have a family now, and like uh not to say the passion's gone, but just it's become really real. And like the decisions can't just be because, oh, I want to do that and I think that sounds fun, or that sounds amusing. Whether it's got to be like, well, that's the right financial business decision to get to the next step for the goals. And part of that's looking at like, what, you know, just talking about the obvious is like, I'm renting in the most expensive place in North America. Like, do we need to be in downtown Vancouver anymore, especially
Oh, my heart.
especially
Right.
well, I'm not saying that we don't. I'm just saying these are things that we have to like think about, like, you know, especially if there's no more brick and mortar. Like if I'm just paying like exorbitant amounts of rent to have a warehouse that's shipping and receiving, and a sampling factory like that is into a flagship store on East Hastings,
Right.
because brick and mortar shopping is no longer a thing, and it's all like that's just, again, it's just a financial thing as much as like I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave East, man, I don't want to not be in Vancouver. It's just like, but if it's just a warehouse,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, if you got a
and you
place
can
to take a moose.
well, yeah, or and you can shave off like what, 50% of your burn rate. Like that's just like, those are decisions that like you said, that like if you give it to a financial person, they're like, well, this is no decision, you fucking retarded. And
Yeah,
it's like,
way to
no,
go.
but I have emotional attachment to this of a part of my thing. So like, yeah, separating them, I guess that's a good way to describe it, is separating emotions from what financially makes the most sense. um and yeah, I mean, it's curious to see what's gonna, like, we do a lot of wholesale, and like a lot of these in North America. So like a lot of these mom and pops and small businesses like fucking dropping like flies, bro. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't, I mean, even Harley stores, franchises are closing and stuff like that. So um that's what I don't like to see that, but the reality is that if everything goes e-com, then like I said, like I'm gonna have to make the decisions that are in line with that. And then passion wise, I'll probably try and grab a space and do some sort of community experience based space so that we utilize these brick and mortar spaces that are going to be left. But I don't know, traditionally I think it's going to be all have to be reinvented potentially, which I'm not afraid of, because I feel like naturally that's what I'm kind of good at, is
Yeah.
like working with nothing, like polishing a turd, like fucking that. I've always been on a shoestring budget because I, didn't have rich parents, but um, feel like it's gonna get harder in that space for a lot of people, and I don't know if we've felt the wave of like a big portion of our consumers being like bartenders and barbers and mechanics and tattoo artists and musicians, and a lot of these people are getting fucking hurting. Like those industries are hurting. So I I don't know how we can circumvent having that affect us. Like
Yeah.
if your clientele base starts running out of money, then you know. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, we
I
got
mean,
a little bit of time left in before Christmas here, and this is supposed to be the biggest shopping, you know, time of year where literally they forecasted, billions of dollars, and they're getting maybe probably 10% of that in the malls. It's the first time I've ever been to a mall and it wasn't packed on Christmas, right? And it's scary, but there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that are coming from their own small business, or having a restaurant, or having a landscaping company, or anything that you're working with people and you're moving around. You can't even do the basic stuff anymore without having a mask on and all this sort of stuff. And it's, so many people are looking for, how do I make an income online without leaving my house and to be sustainable to scale it out. And, luckily we're in that business. And I mean, your guys' branding is so on point. Your guys' content is just, it's rad, right? Like you have that culture going for you guys. So, being a consumer of your product, being the guy that pulls out the credit card and buys, I can say, as long as you guys keep putting out your content and doing your stuff, there's always going to be that those people out there looking to buy. It's, I guess, in your guys's world, it's creating the content, having the people going, doing the burnout competitions and having the parties and everyone coming by and doing that sort of stuff. It's the fingers crossed, man, by, you know, this spring and summer, we're kind of back to semi-normal.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's going to be interesting because the biker community, like, look at Sturgis happened this year. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, come hell or high water, we're fucking rallying,
Yeah.
and like they did it, and like, you know, like, but the biker community, and like Taco Tuesdays this year, like, we just, there was a need to have public assembly for that community, and like it was uh, a crazy overwhelming success for us of the amount of people that were just coming out for tacos on a Tuesday to go for those scoot. And it was like, you know, um, so I know my personality is gonna be pushing the envelope of, like, you know, not wanting to endanger obviously anybody, but like not gonna necessarily follow, like, we don't follow the rules in the biker world. Like,
Right.
the bikes are all illegal. Like, it's just,
For the most part.
well, you know what I mean? Like, it's not to spec. It's, if a
Yeah.
police officer pulls you over, most of the bikes are going to not be legal. So, I mean, we're going to push the boundaries in the event space as well, because I personally think that it's as important for mental health, and that's one thing that's being missed in all of this, is the amount of mental health crisis that we're dealing with, of suicide rates being up like 400 or 500%, OD being up 400 or 500%. Like, that's, and I think that Taco Tuesdays is an example of just that. Like, people need, like, they're just so desperate to get out and feel normal and like be connected. And, you know, I think it's so important that we as humans don't get brainwashed into fearing each other.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you're, oh, you're a threat to my health, you're a threat to my health because you're another human. Like, if we get to that point, like, we're done.
Bro, you know what? Like, I'm a hugger. Like, you know what? Like, I mean,
I
yeah, you
know.
know that. Like, come, hey, what's up, man? Right? Like, I'm a hugger, and
Yeah.
it's like you see these people mask on 6 feet apart. Like, I'm like, when did we become dangerous to each other? It's like, we're not dangerous. This virus is dangerous, and it's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I really appreciated the Taco Tuesdays. My team meetings were 6 p.m. on Tuesday nights. So I did miss a lot of the first part. But as we were getting into like the September months, I remember telling my team, I'm like, listen, guys, it's sunny in Vancouver. Fuck this. I'm going riding. And that, it was awesome, man. Like, we literally filled that parking lot of the dealership every Tuesday plus some. And I mean, I worked at that dealership for 5 years. And there was only certain times that place got packed like that, like it did. And I mean, we were pulling those numbers at the end of September, October, right? Like, that's balls.
Well, yeah, and I think that also, I don't think maybe even I didn't express it enough, but like how proud I was of that community, like really stepping up and listening, like, and like, you know, like, everybody was there, and whenever everyone's pushing the envelope, but like when it came down to it, like when it was like, okay, there's too many people here, like on the poker run, on the Halloween run that we did, it was like too many people here, like we can't do these stops anymore. Like, nobody like nobody didn't listen. Like, everybody listened, and like everybody was, and everybody was very understanding and supportive, and just like very grateful that we were even organizing this to do this, because they wanted it so badly. But I was really like taken back on how cool and responsible the biker community was for being a bunch of like degenerate fucking
Yeah.
bikers, right? You know, like what we get profiled as. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting because we're still gonna have to do. I mean, the reality is that motorcycling is social distancing. It
Yeah,
is,
man. For the most
it's,
part, right?
for the most part, right? And like, we were outside in big parking lots. You know, like, it wasn't like we're. But we'll see. I mean, it's interesting times. I dread that they come out with even more restrictions to not allow that, because I think that it's going to just end in revolt.
You know what, man? I don't think it'll be the virus. Like, the next thing's not the virus. The next thing's the vaccine. Like, that's a whole nother shit storm coming. And it's like,
Oh,
yeah, no matter what side of the fence you're on, it's like everyone thought, oh, this virus is coming. We can't wait for the solution. Now the solution's coming and everyone's like, fuck the solution. We need something better. And it's like, oh shit. Like, are we ever going to find that sort of happy medium where everyone kind of gets what they want a little bit? Or yeah, it's going to be a revolt, man. And it's crazy, but
everyone gets what they want if there's free choice.
yeah,
you get to choose what you want. I think that's where the big problem is, that we're being told that there might not be a choice.
Yeah.
Which is not cool for like a lot of the people in our community. It's like, what do you mean?
Well,
Well, especially I use an example too, especially to bikers. It's like, we make peace with the fact that every time that we get on our motorcycle and even ride in packs, that the percentage of us getting injured or killed is way higher.
comical, right? Fucking
way higher.
How many times have you come home from a ride and been like, holy fuck, I can't believe I live? You know what I mean? Especially when up the Fraser Canyon, doing a $160 through the tunnels, whoa, coming back, topping your bike out. Harleys aren't supposed to go, you're not supposed to max out your Harley. And it's like, you get back from home and you're like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I made it.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. It's like, and then you're going to go and tell those people that they have to do something when it's a 99% recovery rate if you're under 80 or whatever, like, like I make that peace every time I get on my bike that it might die.
Yeah.
I want, what's the whole thing is like, give me like dangerous freedom or give me death. Like it's, that's the thing. So I really hope that we can find some sort of happy medium there. And I just think that it has to be like that everyone has a choice, and it's not.
Well, I believe in Canada, man. I do. I mean, I got some faith in the system still. I'm not one side or the other. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm a people person. I see both perspectives. I respect both perspectives as well. And honestly, man, I'm kind of like you. I got my head down. I'm smashing out my business. We got a new system, new training. We got a whole new flow coming up for 2021. I'm making $1 million in 2021. I mark my word on that. And it's like, that's it. The whole world could be burning around me, and I'm going to be sitting there just fucking, giving her in business, man. So, but
is that $1 million profit?
Was that nonprofit?
No, $1 million profit.
Oh yeah, that's the plan, man. That's the plan. And the thing is I have the team. I have all the people there in the right positions. In our case, we were using software that was the wrong software. We were using an LMS system when we should have been using an actual funnel, a marketing system. So it's like playing baseball bat with a pool noodle. It's like, yeah, you kind of have a bat, but it's not a bat. So that's the plan, man, is, I'm going to try to triple my income this year and go as big as I can. And I love to hit that 7-figure mark. And I'm pretty much set in stone that I'm going to do it this year, man. It's my 6th year. It'll be my 6th year in business. And I'm in a 1,200 square foot townhouse that's $600,000. And I'm looking for to go up in the Okanagan. I'd like a house on the lake or close to the lake. And, in that $1 million to $1.5 million range. So it's, man, we're going to do it. I'm pretty happy about how our business is come along. And of course, being able to do these interviews with guys like yourself. I mean, you're into branding. I'm into branding. I'm sure I'm going to pick your brain here in the next little bit on some of our new stuff. But man, I really appreciate you coming out. Like we literally just crushed out an hour. And I thought we'd be like 20 minutes, half hour. So again, I really appreciate you coming on. And if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, what would you say?
Just one? Well, one, I would say pick your partners very, 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 very carefully.
Yep.
That would be like fundamentally what I would, and yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful things, would be like picking your partner very, very carefully, and less is more.
I feel you there, man. And I'm going to second that, because I've been in the same situation, and you don't have partners that are aligned on the same thing. And everything kind of goes to shit. And again, it's your culture and the vibe and, you know, the energy that you bring in your business, which keeps the business together and keeping people focused on one strategic goal and giving people purpose and passion and really feeling like they matter in life. Right. So, again, man, I really appreciate you coming out, and I'm sure I'll be hitting you up for some new Legacy Builder shirts that'll be putting in order here very, very soon.
You got to see, like, you got the old school. Like, we had to change that logo. We weren't even allowed to use the devil tail's illegal.
What the fuck? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Unreal, man. I got all the OG shit. I got the original hoodie with the patch, stitched on patch on the back and everything.
Oh yeah, you totally do. That's gonna be like frameable one day.
Fucking right on, dude.
20 years deep.
Right on. Yeah. Well, hey, I lived in these shirts for, oh geez, I would probably say 2 years, 3 years until we started the Allied Forces team. And then I had nothing but Allied Forces shirts for years. And literally we just got our new logo back from our logo designer. And other than a couple font changes, we're going to be pretty good to put in another order here, man. So you can be expecting one from real soon. You know, actually, I got a question for you. Do you still have those baseball shirts or sorry, baseball hoodies, the black sleeves with the gray, with the black?
No, like the zip up ones. No,
yeah, I left mine in fucking Whistler, man. I was so pissed. I was driving home. I'm like, fuck, because I know you can't get that stuff anymore. You guys, like, you make a whole line of stuff and then, you know, it gets discontinued.
Well, it gets discontinued, or like that same thing. Like we have a supplier that we're working with, and then they go under, and you know, it's the whole limited edition, bro.
Yeah, well, fuck. It's all good. It's all good. I'm going to be putting in an order for my own wear here soon, and hoodies, long sleeves, t-shirts. We got to get some swag together.
Full tracksuit now, bro. That's all I live in is full tracksuits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got the whole deal, right?
Oh yeah. When I became a dad, the sweatpants became a passion for me, and I just started crushing. I call them dad suits. Everybody calls them dad suits. They're just sweatsuits.
Hey man, I work from home. Like literally the only time that I put jeans on is if I'm going out somewhere, like in public, that's not just to the grocery store. Honestly, man, like literally I work from home. Like right now I got my sweats on and my comfy fucking slippers, right? Like that's how I do it, right? But you know,
fully prepared for you to stand up in boxer shorts right there.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is actually I was doing an interview with a guy, Mike Donaldson, and he's like, hey man, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I was like, yeah, cool. And he shut his thing off and he came back and he's like, hey, I just wasn't wearing any pants. I was like, for fuck's sakes, dude. He's like, I've worked from home for 10 years. I'm a doctor. What? He's like, I've earned the right. I was like, yeah, dude, it's all good. I don't think anyone's gonna hate on you.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right on. All right, dude. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me, bro.
Cheers.